They say punk music is dead. Sure, the punk music and the popularity may not be too prominent right now, but its influences still linger on, especially when you have bands that are attempting to replicate the punk rock ethos of bands such as the Sex Pistols, The Clash, The Sonics, Bad Brains, Iggy and the Stooges, just to name a very small few. And that's just discounting the huge wave of post-punk music that still follows today. That thing is, if you're being influenced by something like old school punk rock, you've got to make sure that you're not rubbing too closely on that influence. You've got to establish yourself and your identity somehow. And Idols, this 5-piece punk rock band from the UK, have done exactly that. I mean, if you listen to their debut album Brutalism, you might notice that it's not a unique sound that they're shooting for, but my goodness, it's the lyric writing, the aggressive vocal deliveries, and the bass-driven, catchy instrumental grooves that absolutely make this album a standout, not just for punk rock bands right now, but maybe just music when it comes to like this year in general. The lyrics are satirical, they're snarky, they mock dialogue, public figures, the class divide, society's habits, society's attitudes, in a witty, tongue-in-cheek manner. This album quickly dawned on me as a social satire that we all kind of deserve and need. But also it's the way that they write lyrics that fascinates me. They kind of write one-liners more than anything, and they target so many different people and topics all over the opinion map. It's a satire aimed at everyone. Each song unloads a bunch of one-liner bombs, and the shrapnel is heading in so many different directions. Well Done is a seemingly simple but very vitriolic shot at the class divide in the UK, furious at the patronising attitude that the upper class tend to have towards the working class, spouting out phrases like "well done" as if to sarcastically congratulate them, and assuming that the reason that some of them are poor is because they don't have a job or they don't have a degree.
Why don't you get a job? Even Tarquin has a job. Mary Berry's got a job. So why don't you get a job? Well done.
Even Tarquin has a job. Mary Berry's got a job. Then the song continues to pester the working class by questioning their music taste as well.
Why don't you like reggae? Even Tarquin likes reggae.
There's a clear vitriol against the attitude that apparently if you're not in the privileged group, we're not interested in your discussion. Rachel Koo is a track that expands on that notion much further. And then you have a track like Faith in the City, which mocks the idea that most people are encouraged to develop a religious faith solely to deal with their hardship. Not a song warning against religion in general, but the way and the reason that religion is encouraged in society, for a reason that perhaps isn't as fulfilling in the long run. As well as this, Idols pretty much admit that they'd like to be rolling in the easy life, but it's just that they dislike the way that the upper class snarkily show it off to the less fortunate. It's the sentiment of the opening track Heal, which introduces you to all the aggression Idols have to offer you, not just in terms of like sonically, because sonically the aggression is just inherently there, but lyrically there is a lot of aggression aimed at the class-based society in Britain. But there are so many parts of their music that just link heavily to just wider society in general. The very clever Date Night starts off framed like an argument between two members of a relationship, but as the song unravels it becomes clear that the lyrics refer to something far more universal and harrowing. Reminds me a lot of this spiral of silence theory. People have their own opinions and thoughts to present that may actually go against the grain of society, but when the time comes for them to let it out, they shut up and act passive about it. Divide and Conquer, on the other hand, takes a more blatant approach and repeats very stark lyrics about, well, how fucked up we all are. Continued in Exeter, while the scenes and the bar fights described in that song are totally absurd and certainly funny, there's just another sense of hopelessness as Joe Talbot repeats that nothing ever happens to break the cycle of social unrest. There are plenty of awesome moments lyrically on Brutalism, full of snark but a dead serious topic and message behind it all, addressing topics like depression and mental health too. Sure, it's in a satirical fashion, but they definitely take the subject matter seriously. They're not taking the piss in a way that suggests that the message isn't to be taken seriously. I mean, why else would they be so angry and aggressive? The track Stendhal Syndrome references art itself. On this track the album becomes meta and takes the piss out of postmodern art, or actually maybe just those who are more perturbed and just offended by it. Art snobs might look at postmodernist art and say anyone could do this and anyone could sell this and show it off, but they actually won't do this themselves. They'd be scrutinized for it. They'd have to deal with that kind of scrutiny that comes with expression of art.
Did you see that selfie? What Francis Bacon did? Done nothing like him. What's a fucking div? Hotter.
Plus, if they did, they'd understand more the beauty of expression in art, and they wouldn't let the point fly over their head as many times as the fictional narrator does in this song. And with more of this album's many brutalisms in mind, I'd like to talk about one of my top songs of the year so far, Mother. This song angrily addresses the class divide, sexual assault, Tories, but it's that refrain that really freaked me out. While sounding like a typical bout of punk-like aggression at first, like, you know, just yelling out motherfucker for no reason other than just yell it, it's not until the bridge comes around that this profane refrain is put into context. The bridge, bringing sexual assault into the song, suddenly makes the aggressive motherfucker line a lot more unsettling. It actually puts into perspective our colloquial use of that phrase, and how when you step back and actually look at the phrase itself, its meaning sure has a weird origin. The song addresses how even schoolyard boys use this phrase casually among themselves, despite their very vulgar implications. Combine that with the poignancy of working extremely hard to raise a child that can be educated enough to scare the Tories, but not having that motherly, parental work appreciated or recognized by society enough, and that song is likely to be in my top 10 of the year for sure. That and the guitar work on this album is awesome, and the bass work on this album is awesome as well. I love hearing a band that can really just get down with some awesome bass grooves. It's obviously trying to sound raw and rough-edged, but there are some great angular, crunchy melodies to complement those sharp, knife-like lyrics. Check out 1049 Gotho, for instance, or the opener Heal. The riffs are just so memorable. I do think that after all of this aggression, ending off with a very slow song, Slow Savage, is a teeny bit of a downer. Personally, might have preferred something to kick my ass one last time, but that's just me. Overall, this album has bite, it has bones to pick, it is a fantastic installment for punk rock right now, the social satire that we all need and deserve. I'm giving this album a 9 out of 10. That's right, a 9!